Hello everybody and welcome to another top 5 board gaming video. Today we're going to be talking all about everybody versus one type of board games. So this creates a very unique type of asymmetry where you literally have one person who's typically playing as the bad guys or bad guy as the case may be, and then everybody else is playing cooperatively in order to try and defeat them. And it creates this very unique dynamic, not to mention replayability, because in addition to the fact that you have the different table aspect of you're bad and we're all good, so we're going to stay over here, but you also have unique replayability in the asymmetry of being on sort of the other side of the screen, so to speak, and being able to see something from a different angle and be able to play in a different way, a drastically different way. So this is one of my favorite types of games to play. The problem is that you typically need a decent number of players, but regardless, I'm super excited about it. As always, let me know what your personal favorites are in the comments below because I love to hear all of them, but we're going to jump right on in with my number 5. At number 1, I've got Descent. This is probably something that'll come up to most people's minds when they think of everybody versus one, but for me it's so low on the list because it essentially tries to emulate a tabletop role-playing experience. It's not a bad thing, but the idea is that essentially you have one player who's playing as the dungeon master, and then everybody else is playing as characters going through a campaign. It's not bad in any way, but just play D&D instead. You could totally do that. That said, Descent itself is a great game. It's wonderfully well done. The mechanics are awesome. You've got great character progression and all that kind of stuff. And it's fun on both sides, being either the game master who is controlling all of the bad guys or being the good guys and having that cooperation aspect. It's a lot of fun. You've got a lot of uniqueness with the different characters. It's a great game all in all, but still, it's my number 5. At number 4, I've got Imperial Assault. Fundamentally, this comes down to a skirmish game, and this is the rebellion versus the Empire. One person is playing as the Empire and all of the Imperial troops, everybody else playing through scenarios as the various rebel troops trying to take over the base or whatever it happens to be. Now, of course, it is Star Wars, it is Fantasy Flight, it is a good game. Don't get me wrong, but it's a skirmish game and I'm just not huge on skirmish games. It's just not really my shtick. It never really has been. The thing is though that this works very well as a one versus many because in the Star Wars universe, this is often how everything is portrayed. You have the big bad evil empire against the scruffy can-do attitude type of rebels that are going against the big bad guys. And so it just makes sense thematically as well as mechanically in the game because the Empire has a lot of very strong troops that can take a lot to take out and a lot of strategy on the part of the rebels. It's a lot of fun, but again, because it's a skirmish, it's a little lower. Imperial Assault, my number 4. At number 3, I've got Middle-earth Quest. This is a relatively unique game in the Lord of the Rings kind of umbrella because it doesn't take place during either the Hobbit era with Bilbo going on his adventure or in the Lord of the Rings era with Frodo going on his adventure. Rather, it takes place kind of in between and a little bit of overlapping. And so just in that sense, it's relatively unique because you have a unique place in the timeline. But as far as the game itself, one person is playing as the evil armies of Sauron, getting ready and trying to fight back and go against the heroes of Rohan and Gondor and all of those types of guys. And essentially the idea is that the other players will pick heroes to play as and try to fight off all of the evils of Sauron while Sauron is trying to spread evil across the land and you're trying to prevent that and get everything on the side of good. And so it's very much good versus evil. It's very much in the feeling of Lord of the Rings, and I love the fact that it's in that kind of in-between era that we never really get to talk about. So very fun, very unique aspects to it. Lord of the Rings, Middle-earth Quest, my number 3. At number 2, I've got Letters from Whitechapel. This is a really fascinating game that's all about logical deduction and reasoning, and specifically about hunting down Jack the Ripper. Now, we have seen several games that do this, where we've seen Mr. Jack and a few others like that, but this one is kind of fun because you have one person who's playing as Jack the Ripper and moving around London, and everybody else is playing as constables trying to catch him. There are rules with regard to how everybody is able to move, and Jack is trying to kill off people at different times, times, and then people get alerted so that they know approximately where to go, or at least, you know, he was here at this time, at this point, so where could he have gone, and all that kind of thing. It's a lot of tracing and tracking and logic and all that sort of thing, which is what I absolutely adore in mini games, not to mention the fact that this is based off of real life events. Sort of, kind of ish, at least. I mean, Jack the Ripper was an actual serial killer, at least. Very, very cool, a lot of fun, great game, and again, as far as the asymmetry is concerned, very, very different on either side of the board there. Letters from Whitechapel, my number 2. At number 1, I've got Fury of Dracula. Very similarly to Letters from Whitechapel, the idea of this is that you've got one person who's playing as Dracula and trying to sneak around and all that kind of thing. Similarly to Middle-earth Quest, he is trying to spread his evilness all over the place and create hideouts and do all this kind of stuff and make baby vampires and all this sort of thing, while everybody else is playing as vampire hunters trying to track down and kill Dracula. That's pretty much the size of it. But the fact is that the game is so well balanced and it's so much fun and the mechanics just fit together so well. I can't describe it any better than that. I don't know if it's just me, but I have had nothing but wonderful experiences with this game. I absolutely adore it, and one of the best things about it is that you can play it with as few as 2 players. The thing is that one player is playing as Dracula and the other player will be playing as all of the hunters collectively. So you always have to have all of the hunters on the table. It's just a matter of, do you have one person for each hunter, or do you have several people who are playing multiple hunters, or whatever it is. Either way, it's a great deal of fun. There's a lot of strategy behind it on both sides. Again, a lot of asymmetry, and the strategic aspects of either side are very, very different. It's a wonderful game. Fear of Dracula, my number 1. Well, everybody, that's going to be it for me. I hope that you enjoyed this video on my top 5 favorite many versus 1 types of games. Now, this is a somewhat uncommon style of game, but the asymmetry, as I mentioned, is something that I absolutely adore. The whole good versus evil, all of that kind of thing. Now, there are a lot of shades of gray when it comes to this. You have treachery mechanics like in Shadows over Camelot. You have things like Betrayal at House on the Hill, where you don't know who the one person versus the many others are going to be, and stuff like that. What do you consider the mechanic to be? How far do you think that it has to go to be considered a many versus 1? I'm really curious what you guys have to say, and of course what your personal favorite games are in the category. Let me know anything and everything in the comments. And as always, if you haven't done so already, please take a look at my various social media pages where you can interact with myself and my channel in a whole bunch of really fun ways. And as we have been doing, it is summer now. Delta variant of COVID-19 is spreading like wildfire still, though. Everybody, please be careful. If you have not done so already, please get vaccinated. But regardless, whether or not you do, stay safe. Be as safe as possible. Don't go out if you don't have to. Wear a mask if you do have to go out. Please, everybody stay safe, stay healthy, be well. Bunker down, and we will get through this eventually. But with that, thank you so very much as always for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.